Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the go-to-market session. I want to thank Anurag for pulling this together. This is a brainchild that we both have been thinking for a little while now. My name is Ajay Manglani. I'm part of TiE team. Before we start the panel, I want to give you a little bit of a background why we are doing this GTM track again after a pretty long time. GTM, not only it is important for entrepreneurs at different stages, but even for big enterprises, as we all know. And in these times, primarily the people like CMOs and CROs, we are going through very unique times where the expectations are changing. What is expected out of their roles, what is expected out of their partnership. And we in TiE ecosystem, many of us are very passionate about go-to-market, not just the integral role of a CMO or a CRO on their own. And that's what we want to engage and start those dialogues on. Without further ado, I do want to highlight that go-to-market, integrated go-to-market, joint accountability models are extremely important when we think about these discussions. So I want you to keep that in mind. But without further ado, I do want to introduce our moderator for the next panel. And then I want to also thank the members on the panel who will talk. I know Anurag has brought in a lot of his personal relationship and persuaded you to take time out of your busy schedules to be here. But our next moderator, someone I look up to, we talked last year at TiEcon, and I didn't even realize we'll be back here at this time, Unnikrishnan KP. He's currently the SVP of Americas Marketing at Palo Alto Networks, which needs no introduction. Led Palo Alto as their CMO through very unique times, amazing growth phase, almost 12 years at Palo Alto Networks. Before that, he has held marketing leadership roles in various parts of the world. One of the biggest things that drives me to Unni is he's such a humble person. If you meet him, I think he's in the front row, yes. And really enjoy talking to him. But most importantly, our connection is, which we have not talked about, is also from Pune, which I see from his background. So without any further ado, Unni, would you please come here together with the panel? We have Carol here. Right, please walk over. Yes, Michael, Monisha, I can barely see, yep. And then Wendy, all four of you. Thank you so much, everyone. A big round of applause for them. And I'll let Unni take it from here.
All right, so good afternoon. And as Anurag said, we really can't see anybody, which I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but that's okay. I think this is an exciting time for all of us when it comes to AI. And some of us were at a industry exhibition this week, and I was told there were like 732 companies which were either sponsoring or exhibiting, and 615 of them had AI splattered all across them. Which begs to wonder what happened to the other 100. Maybe they didn't get their memo. Maybe the marketing team didn't do a good job over there. But talking about marketing, I think this is important for me and the opportunity for me to host this panel with these illustrious executives over here. We are at a cusp of an era which is going to be transforming everything that we do. And we talk about it every couple of years, but I think personally for a lot of us, whether it's irrespective at what age you are in, which organization you are, what industry you're part of, AI is touching you. And the backbone of how successful you're going to be in this space, and I am biased, I'm very honest, it's because of marketeers. Right? Yes, products are going to make a difference, technology is going to make a difference, businesses are going to make a difference. But if you're not able to have somebody articulate the value proposition, the change, the up-leveling of how you're driving the impact to the market, that organization would fail, and marketers are going to make a big, big, big difference. So what I want to do for the next 20, 25 minutes is to really pick on the brains of these executives to understand on how they're looking at AI in the marketing space. And I want to start off with the first question that's going to be towards Monisha. Okay, and I also said, I've been in full transparency. I said, this is a panel which needs to be interactive. And if they're not interactive, I have a bad reputation of going off script. So you guys can actually help me to ask all kinds of questions. So it's not about just targeting at one of y'all, but it's about a conversation. But let us start off with Monisha first. When it comes to marketing leadership, how do you think AI adoption and differentiation needs to be really implemented and adopted in an organization? And how do you think, as marketeers, you should be driving this?
Yeah, sure. So, can you hear me? Okay. It's a great question. We at Google work with hundreds of customers on this very topic. And the number one KPI that any organization, but marketers within organizations should think about is adoption, right? AI adoption, because it doesn't matter if no one uses the product you've built or bought, there's no ROI, right? And the nice thing about AI is that the more you use it, the better it gets. So it really is this flywheel. So adoption becomes very important. In fact, we've done a little bit of research at Google, and AI market leaders or AI marketers who are leading in AI see 60% growth in revenue versus those organizations that are just still dabbling. So what does that mean? I think the experimentation phase is over, right? And so therefore, the other thing that people I think get caught up in is I have to start to solve, AI becomes a problem that I need to solve for, right? And I think we hear that a lot. But the reality is that we already have our set of organizational problems or a set of strategies that we're trying to execute. AI becomes one of the many things that we can then use at our disposal to execute on. So assuming that your go-to-market strategy roadmap is aligned to your organizational goals, that's a great place to start. Start with your P&L. What are you looking to do? Whether it's driving revenue growth, right? I want to acquire new customers. I want to enter new markets. I want to redefine the way my customers experience my brand, my marketing funnel, my support. All of that has a bend towards revenue growth. And then, of course, there are opportunities around driving efficiencies. Right? We see that. How do we take the routine and the mundane tasks and automate them? How do we leverage more data, more insights to our advantage? And finally, and this is, I think, pretty relevant, especially with this audience, how do I ensure that I'm leveraging AI through the marketing stack that I have today?
So you touch upon a good point, Monisha, and I think the advantage or disadvantage that we have when it comes to AI is it's kind of like a unicorn that there's no best practices. We're all learning. So I want to kind of open it up to this panel. I promised you I'm going to go off track, right? What about skills? How do you get people to be trained as marketeers on actually trying new things, right? And without going off guardrails. So looking at the three of you all, what has been your philosophy of enabling and skilling people in your organization?
So what we've done actually at Responsive is we've made driving to AI leadership a #1 strategic priority for the company as a whole. And so that's been a really important thing in terms of driving transformation. And so by making that a priority, we're encouraging everyone within our teams to identify different solutions with AI capabilities that they can tap into and just to start to experiment. I mean, the training is actually just learning by doing and experimenting, and then the knowledge sharing within the organization. But to Monisha's point, the period of experimentation is starting to come to a close to a certain degree. It's just so important to lean in early and lean in hard and learn and adapt. So, but making it a strategic priority and really, really encouraging teams to adopt is the way to go.
Got it. Wendy, I'm going to ask you this question. As marketers, we are constantly worried about being dinosaurs, right? You don't want to be living in a dinosauric era, and you're constantly evolving. In your world or your experience, how have you seen AI change traditional marketing? What are some of the examples or best practices you can let the people know?
Yes, absolutely. So in our recent sales kickoff that we just finished a month ago, my marketing keynote, it's all about disrupt or being disrupted by AI, right? And so it's a double-edged sword. Like Monisha has mentioned, there's so many great things that AI is literally transforming the way we do every part of our job, our life, being more productive. We're able to gather better intelligence. We can segment our audience base in a way more granular than we ever could. We gather more compete intel. We can enable sales with more automation. All the great things goes on and on and on. At the same time, there's a ton of challenges. I'm sure some of you are wondering why my website stats is not growing as fast as it used to be, right? So Gartner has published this data point. They predict the website traffic, it's seen a 25% drop because of all the AI impact on search. Think about it, ask yourself, right? How many times you're still using Google these days versus going to ChatGPT and type in a query, you get the answer right away. And how many times you further click the link, want to know more, versus just ask the bot. You keep asking the bot, and the bot just keep feeding you the question. So that is a real challenge for us as marketers. My website used to be our #1 engine pumping out all the great leads, but now if that engine is not as reliable as it used to be, what do you do, right? So we started to ask ourselves the question first, do we know how much of our traffic is actually being disrupted, being replaced by the bot? Do we even have the tools to tell us that? And do you know what's the conversion rate that you get from the bot versus you get in the regular traffic? And how do you now reverse engineer once you know the algorithm to say, now how am I going to feed the content to the bot so the bot can represent us in the proper way, right? And there's some downstream effect. For example, your brand voice, brand equity is no longer in your own control. If you don't feed the bot, but your competitor does, and when someone type in the query, please tell me company A versus company B, even though company A might be the leader of the industry, but company B has done a phenomenal job training the bot, that guess what? The bot might recommend company B in an RFP query. So all these are just legit, real threats as marketer, go-to-market leaders we face day in and day out. So we need to ask ourselves, what do we do? Number one thing, it's really content. Content is still the king. That's not gonna go away, right? How can we make sure we have the right content tailored to that? Number two, it's the measurement, the tracking, to make sure we're aware of what's happening. And number three, it's our people, our talent. Right? And we have to make sure they're really trained up to speed, like what Michael was saying, so that we can then put AI to the best use.
Carol, let me ask you a question.
I was going to ask her a question,
Okay,
but
please do. Yeah. I was paid, but maybe she's going to take that part.
What was your answer to the team around how do you ensure the queries that go through big, large language or chatbots?
Yeah, we're still figuring this out. But
know
we started to do deep analysis on our content and looking at, are we having major content gaps? For example, compete is an area that we always say, let's take the high road. We don't want to go down to the level of feature function comparison. But maybe in the AI of this kind of thing, you need a page. All of competitors, right? You look at them, they have those side-by-side comparison. So we said, okay, maybe this is the time for us to put on that battle, right? But figure out what's the right way to feed the bot. And that's just being one thing, right?
Yeah.
Many things.
I mean, we had some engineers analyze how do you ensure, because the questions that very often get asked in these chatbots are, how does blank compare to blank? How does Pepsi compare to Coke?
Exactly.
And it comes back to really precise content that feeds it. So it's still content, but it's a different type of content, to your point. That's what I was hoping.
Hyper-targeted content.
Okay, thank you.
And this is where AI also has to come in, because that's how it augments how precise and how concise your content is going to be, and that's going to be really critical. And that ties back to compliance and trustworthiness of what AI you're going to use. Talking about some of the tools, and I think, Carol, this is now a question because I think I get to ask the questions, not you. Just kidding. Please. Which AI tools in your world have meaningfully changed the way you've been going to market? Is there some insights that you can give to the folks around here?
Yeah, sure. So I'm with Cohesity, and I've only been here 10 weeks, so okay, it's brand new. And but we are looking at a ton, and there already was a tremendous amount of experimentation with AI, different AI tools. There are kind of two types of tools that we've focused on. One are the general purpose natural language query tool. and having one that's trained on our brand that we can use. I think Gemini is very good, by the way, and ChatGPT is good, but picking one, and we're very close to finalizing that, but picking one and then training it and in your persona, your brand, your language, your tone, et cetera. And then that becomes the basis that everyone in marketing for various use cases can use. And we did a whole audit of like how many use cases we have across marketing, and we literally had like 35. I'm like, okay, we're not buying 35 different tools. So then we bucketed them and we said, okay, here are the ones that relate to awareness. I mean, what are the three things I care most about? Awareness, engagement, and pipeline. And so I broke them into those three categories because there are definitely tools that can help you with pipeline generation, scoring, attribution, blah, 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 blah. Okay, there are tools that can help you with awareness. So we broke them into those categories. So there's general purpose, which we're going to pick a large language model that we're going to train. And then there are specific ones that we really like, there's one called Surf SEO, for content related to SEO, but also content related to, the chatbots too. But that's one very specific use case that has high return. We like Jasper.ai for content creation, landing page creation. It's quite good. Now, here's the question I want to ask. Oh, I'm not supposed to ask. Here's what I'll say. We have not let go of any people because of this, okay? It hasn't replaced anybody. I'd love to hear if you all are finding that there are tools where you can then say, hey, I don't need 5 people or I don't need a group. We found it to be an adjunct and a productivity enhancer. And look, let's face it, everyone's being asked to do more with less, reduce, and you're like, we're cutting to the gristle, we can't do. So how do we get more? And my promise to our team is, marketing, we run really fast up and down the stairs all the time. That's what marketing is really good at. What we are focused on is how do we build high-speed elevators to get to the 100th floor faster? And what are the tools we need? So, really trying to minimize this manual, heavy work that we all do. Like you run an ad campaign, you have to like cut and paste links with LinkedIn, and you have to run a campaign. I'm like, this is so manual still. So anyway, those are the three categories, and I mentioned a few. I'd love to hear from all of you if you have tools you love, because there's so many. And I think that's the other part is working with IT to get a process in place where you can test and play and make some quick decisions without getting locked in to, the 3 years, blah, 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 blah. Because it's going to change. That's what I'm also finding. What was hot and really useful, and I'm not going to name that, but there are some tools for ABM that were really good about 3 years ago, and they are no longer as good. I worked with a company many years back where our CEO would say, technology has a shelf life of a banana. I think it's a lot more apt right now when it comes to AI, the way it's evolving. Monisha, I want to turn this question actually to you, and it's kind of picking up on what Carol said. And you are in an organization which, again, is visibly on the forefront of AI. How do you kind of market it without overhyping it? Because again, this is a thin line that marketers have to always walk, that, hey, are you piggybacking and riding the wave, and how are you not kind of jumping the gun on some of these things?
I think my colleagues probably have lots of opinions on this as well. Look, I personally think that Google undermarkets most of our products anyway. We're really focused on the technology and the innovation that comes out of this. And selfishly, because my focus is customer value, what are the business outcomes that we can drive with our customers? So when we sit down and we engage our customers in a sales cycle, we really want to understand what problems they're trying to solve. So I think your example about the use cases is such a good one, because typically you have hundreds of use cases within an organization, but you only have a finite number of resources to implement them. So how do you think about prioritizing those use cases, right? What we do, one of the frameworks that we use is we look at time to value, and then value. right? And you kind of map that. There could be things that need to be addressed urgently because you have a new product launch or there's an event or whatever it may be, but the readiness in your organization to implement them. So technically, do you have the right data? Where does the data sit? Do you need to consolidate it? How do you activate it? Do you have the right technologies at play? Are your partners up to speed? All of that can take time, right? So what we're trying to do when we work with our customers, because we have a toolkit, we have a platform of AI solutions up and down different industries. We want to help them really prioritize where they're building solutions and then how they're realizing value as a result of that.
Got it. Buyer's persona, Michael, right? Again, this is a critical component because how are you getting precise? How are you getting targeted? So in your world, how have you changed your go-to-market strategies, especially when it comes to identifying and acting on buyer's persona in your target market?
Yeah, buyer's personas and intent data. The way we think about things holistically is in terms of the customer journey. And so making it as easy as possible that for prospects that have pain that we can address to find out about our solution, learn about our solution, and then get into our sales funnel. And so there are so many opportunities with AI when we think about it from a customer journey perspective. So at the top of the funnel, awareness, individuals will search on pain points. Traditionally, Google, Bing was the primary place that individuals would go to. Increasingly, they're going to AI search engines, so ChatGPT, Perplexity, and so on. And so as a provider of solutions, it's incredibly important that we show up in those search engines, have a compelling presence. And so we're evolving how we're managing that, making sure that we're providing content's king, providing content that informs these search engines, so it's super easy. Second, when a customer or prospect is interested in learning more about us and they do come to our website, again, serving up content that's going to be really relevant. So Wendy talked a lot about bots. So when somebody comes to the website, they are interested, serving up content that's really compelling to them, answering the questions immediately, making it easy for them to book meetings, super important. Once we actually engage in a sales cycle, leveraging AI to record a conversation, understand buyer sentiment, make sure our sellers are on message, flag situations when they're not. So managing that process, also leveraging digital sales rooms so that when our seller provides content out to a prospect, seeing how that content's being consumed, that's all part of the customer journey, and so it's leveraging AI. After a customer actually signs, managing or leveraging AI to understand adoption, which we've talked about, as well as customer sentiment is super important. So if a customer is green, that's probably an expansion opportunity. If they're yellow, we probably need to engage in some way. If they're red, we actually need to get in and engage to drive retention. So thinking about that end-to-end customer journey and the different tools you're using from an AI perspective, super important. I view it as a portfolio management. We have 30 different tools in our go-to-market stack for a variety of different things. It seems like a lot. It's actually not that many, but we need to proactively manage that portfolio, bring new technologies in, retire those that aren't keeping up to speed, and do it within the context of thinking about that end-to-end customer journey and making it as easy as possible for a prospect to go from interest to actual purchase.
You touched upon a very good point, and end of the day, it's all about the data of the customers, which are going to be so critical to everything that we do. Our strategy, our go-to-market, campaign, our messaging, and I think one key thing that we had done some time back was really about the partnership of a CMO and a CIO, because end of the day, it's so critical on how you do all of these things securely. So maybe Carol, if I can just start with you, what are your thoughts about when it comes to security and the way you look at AI in your organization?
Okay, well, we are a data security company, so this is like kind of relevant.
Why do you think I started with you?
But what's so, and you too. It's interesting because I have never had a CIO say this to me, but this was amazing. Like the CIO literally a few weeks ago reached out to me and says, I know your team is experimenting and I want to support you. And I think there has been a sea change shift, and I hope this is the case for all of you. What the agreement we made, I thought this was interesting. I said, look, I really appreciate that. And then he said, this was great. He said, but not every tool. Like, can you, because what he was seeing, because, IT sees all, what he was seeing is everybody was using, even though they weren't supposed to, Perplexity on this phone, Claude over here, Gemini, et cetera, but not necessarily using like the enterprise license we had. So I said to him, I said, we have to give people enough freedom. It's the whole balance, freedom and control. And I said, so let's do this. I put together a beta team. I mean, it sounds like we're a huge company. We're not a huge company. But I said, okay, here are the 4 people from my team who are part of our beta group. He has 2 people from his team. We're going to pick 5. Well, we're having 1 general and then 4 specific tools. So 1 general. And that's what we agreed upon. So I don't know. I think everyone's got to go through their own type of negotiation. But I will say you cannot go and ask for every single tool in the tool belt. And you cannot say, you have to include them. I mean, it's like anything. You've got to create a partnership and do it together.
If I can add on a point here, SailPoint is an identity security company. We traditionally has been focusing on ensuring the right employees has the right access to the right data at the right point. Right now, it's a big pivot. We also have to make sure those data bots, the machines, the AI agents are having the right access to the right data points, right? Oftentimes, think about it. You can trick an agent to access the data you're not supposed to access, but the agent might have access to that data. What if that confidential data get leaked in whatever the agent is doing and shared publicly? That could really have disastrous impact on the company. So while we're adopting the agents in many different ways, we have to think about how do we make sure the privacy, the compliance, the governance of the agents are put in place in a proper way.
Anurag, can I take you out for a coffee and maybe take this panel for another 30 minutes? Right? But on a serious note, thank you very much. I know we can go on and on. AI we're at the cusp, and I think our career, our generation, our organizations are at a stage where we're going to see some radical shifts on what AI is going to bring to the table. And it's exciting. It can be a little bit scary, but guess what? That's the fun about in technology. And having said that, I want to say thank you, Monisha, Carol, Wendy, Michael, for your wonderful insights, and I do hope the audience also enjoyed this. With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.